Welcome to the Cosmic Confluence podcast, listeners, where science meets soul and we explore the multidimensional dance of healing, energy, and embodied transformation. I'm your host, Sana, as always. And now let me ask you, have you ever paused to ask yourself, why or what is my body really trying to tell me through this pain? To be honest, I've never asked that. But these kind of conversations, they always give me a mirror and they always encourage me to ask myself, my body. Now, what if discomfort isn't just an inconvenience, but it is an intelligent signal? It's an invitation into deeper healing. Well, to help me answer these questions, I have Dr. Brittney Hobbs. She is a somatic decoder and energetic guide whose work has helped countless women move beyond symptom management into embodied cellular transformation. And she is here today to help us reframe chronic pain not as something to numb or push away, but as a powerful personal message coded in our tissues, nervous system, and even written in the stars. Yes, exactly, listeners. You heard that right. So, if you have been living with a lingering stress, fatigue, or maybe unexplainable, excruciating pain, this episode is your portal to clarity, calm, and cosmic support. So, with that, let's quickly dive in. So, Dr. Brittany, welcome to the show, and I am so excited to have you here with us.
Thank you. I am super excited to be here with you and to be having a really important conversation that I absolutely love having and getting the word out about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, before I ask you any question, Dr. Brittany, I guess this episode is really very special because, on one hand, we'll be talking about our bodies and, the painful, sometimes the whispers and messages it sends us. And then on the other hand, we'll also try to dive into astrology, into the language of the stars to understand how they can help us in the healing journey. So it's really going to be exciting. So with that, Dr. Brittany, you say that pain is not random. It is a coded message. So for someone hearing that for the first time, including me as well, how can they begin to decode their pain, and how exactly do you deduce this?
It really starts with reflection. When we have an acute injury or an accident and let's say we injure our wrist or our ankle, we can
Mhm.
link that directly to an event, but when we have pain that either comes on suddenly or builds on itself over time and it hangs around for a really long time, even if, it goes away and it comes back, it goes away and it comes back. These are all, our body trying to get our attention to say, "Hey, something isn't
Right.
going the way that we need it to go." Right? And that's when we need to look back on kind of a whole lifetime worth of patterns, and that can sound overwhelming, but and that's where, working with somebody can be really beneficial to kinda guide right into there, but looking back and kinda noticing, have you lived your life in a lot of stress or high intensity situations? Are there patterns going all the way back to childhood of hard things happening or a lot of worries building up inside or a hard time expressing how we feel? And all of that builds up. I kind of think of it as a bucket. Our body can only hold so much, similar to how a bucket can only hold so much water. And each time we have a stress, whether that be a good stress or a bad stress, that's a drop in this bucket. And if we don't learn how to kind of support our unique bodies by, building in a little spigot at the bottom of the bucket to let some of those stressors drain away, or some of those emotions or frustrations, right? We can fill in a lot of different words for what fills up in that bucket. But we have to learn what our body needs from us to kind of open up that spigot and let some of that drain out so that we have more capacity and resilience to face all the other things that are gonna come our way in life.
Mm. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I think it can be a bit uh, uh, maybe met with skepticism initially for someone, especially who spent years managing pain through medication or therapy. So, for them, Dr. Brittany, how do they shift into listening rather than fixing? Because through so many years and through pain and pain medications and everything, those are kind of quick fixes. So somehow our body and minds they get into that habit of or of resorting to quick fixes instead of bearing through the pain or understanding the root cause behind it. So how can they shift into listening?
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point. I think all of us have been conditioned to desire those quick fixes, and when we're in pain, it makes a whole lot of sense. And, I've worked as a pharmacist for the past 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how limiting medications and even certain types of therapies are in healing pain, because our body's gonna win out. It needs us to be present, and it needs us to feel, not just talk about what we've experienced, but really allow ourselves to feel into it. And
Mhm.
we can start that by, as cliche as it sounds, it really has to do with us carving out time to be with ourselves in some capacity. And, a really simple starting place is, just placing a hand over our heart and simply saying to ourselves, "Hey, I'm here with you. I have your back. I'm listening." And actually take a few seconds to just see what can you put a name to the feeling that you're feeling, or can you identify a sensation? Maybe anxiety shows up as a little bit of jitteriness or quivering somewhere
Mhm.
inside the chest, right? And maybe we're not able to put a word to that, but even us just starting to notice what sensation am I having in my body? Does it feel heavy and dense, or does it feel quick and jittery, or does it feel spacious, or is it contracted? And that's a really, really important starting place that really can take 10 seconds of us, just that hand on the heart and just getting curious. What can I feel right this moment?
Mm. That's definitely, I think, very easy and simple, yet such um, a profound step to begin with. It's like your soul, your mind, and your body. They're kind of now embracing or stepping onto the journey of becoming in sync. Um, and this is the beauty of your work, Dr. Brittany, that you blend somatic work, system regulation, and then energy healing also. And all of these, once again, so beautifully, like they're signifying the um, this beautiful connection between mind, body, and our soul. Because ultimately, our soul is energy. So, which of these practices tend to surprise the people you work with the most, and why do you think that is?
You know, in my experience, the somatic work is what is so surprising to people. I've had past clients mention all the different types of modalities that they've tried over the years, whether that be therapies or expensive treatments or medications or procedures. And when when they're guided into their body,
Mhm.
the logic goes away. We're no longer using our brain to try to fix or solve a problem. We're going in and we're learning how to be this really compassionate, loving friend to our body, and in doing that, it is always so incredible what is unlocked and opened up, and that can be stories that our body holds, or that could be, something going all the way back to childhood, or realizing that, their stomach problems does have this connection to their neck pain, and what that underlying theme is, and we weren't able to get there without going into the body and feeling and sensing and allowing things to rise up to our consciousness rather than us trying to create these connections between dots with our logical brain that we frequently aren't. There's no way we would be able to connect those without going into the body. It truly it feels like magic when we're in there doing that.
It does. It does. Um, and we were having our conversation on the mindful living yesterday, and something you mentioned, a statement which I'm going to retain it now onwards. Initially, I learned that our souls, they are kind of the uh, uh, library or the data records of how our soul has traveled across different planes, dimensions, locations, timelines. And now, yesterday, when you mentioned that our bodies are also the living libraries, that kind of really struck a chord with me. And then we also discussed about, how inherited pain, up to maybe 7 generations back, it can be held in our bodies. And that can really feel overwhelming. So, how can we start healing what isn't even ours? I mean, can it be healed, including all the modalities like somatic, or energy healing or nervous system regulation, or it depends on like person to person and their unique experiences?
It really does. It circles back to that relationship that we have with our body. I am a firm believer that our body only allows into our conscious awareness what it feels we have the capacity to hold.
Mm.
And so the more that we learn how to create safety and kind of cultivate this relationship, like a supportive, nourishing relationship with our body, the more it's going to allow us to become aware of so that we can process it. So healing isn't like a end point. It's a spiral, and we get to go deeper and deeper into the spiral as we build more and more capacity to hold space for what our body needs us to become aware of. And in terms of getting really specific on, how can we heal these things that we never experienced? Thinking of, generational trauma or, lineage patterns that go generation to generation. And part of what, the somatic work does incredible stuff because again, the generational stuff or the past life stuff, it's held in our DNA, it's held in our body, which is why we can't get to it with that logical, you know, solely reflecting on our life experiences because not everything is going to make sense, or we're not going to be able to connect the dots without going into the body and allowing that to rise up, but also utilizing our birth charts to really get to know what is our blueprint
Mhm.
can help open up doors and help us see patterns that maybe we thought that everybody felt this way or was dealing with this internal, you know, um, what's the word? These internal conflicts or internal pressures. And And when we learn that, oh, like, there's an infinite amount of ways for somebody to how they feel inside, and that, we hear a lot about everybody has different love languages and, um, just different ways of being, but there's so many ways of how we internalize things and how we interact with the outer world, and studying the birth chart of somebody helps me to really be able to say, "Hey, this is something that's going on, and this is how I think you would be better served supporting and nourishing yourself." Because I don't know about you, but in the past, I myself, as well as lots of people that I've met, we see, "Oh, this thing worked for that person, so I'm gonna try that." Or, "That thing over there, I see that working really well for them, so maybe that's my saving grace." And that might leave us being on this hamster wheel for years of trying to figure out what is the thing that's going to work for us. What is that morning routine, or what is that diet, or what is that spiritual practice, or fill in the blank. And with using the birth chart, it takes all of that guesswork away, and it helps the individual get really clear, there's this click that happens, like, "Oh, that sounds incredible, and I know that would be nourishing," and then we can build, a whole routine, and we can clear out these certain patterns. And I have a couple of case examples just to give some, examples of what that might look like too, if and when we're ready to kinda look at, how does the astrology support the healing side of things too?
Absolutely. And this is so, so exciting and at the same time, kind of, triggering because there's so many misconceptions around astrology. Some time back, I heard it from someone that, they are having knee pain or maybe some kind of muscular pain, especially at the time of full moons or eclipses. There are kind of energy spikes during certain planetary events. So we'll definitely come to the examples, Dr. Brittany, but also how do these planetary movements and then the birth charts, how they and our unique energetic blueprints are connected, and how do they influence pain or healing in the body? I mean, that's really surprising, but I would love to know the connection.
Yeah, and, a way for me to really grasp planetary bodies can influence us on Earth because they seem so far away, and it seems somewhat illogical to think that they could have such an influence on us. But I think of the moon, for starters, as something that we can really like, there's tangible effects that we see on the Earth of how the moon impacts us. So whether that's we're thinking about the tides of the oceans and how we have high tide and low tide, and how the moon is directly connected to how it impacts that. And, I think about how the majority, we're made up of water. Right? And so if the moon can impact these giant bodies of water on the earth, then it obviously is having some sort of impact on us at a cellular level, and all of these fluids and how they all interact. And thinking of our nervous system is made up of spinal fluid. So again, another liquid flowing through us. And how does the moon, and if it's, gravitational forces impact us, and then we go out further to these other planetary bodies that are even bigger. They're further away, but they still are having this impact, and it just it brings me to this sense of awe at how interconnected we are. And I also think of the the butterfly effect. You know, have you heard of like when a butterfly flaps its wings in one part of the world, how it can have this impact that moves
Yes.
all the way to the other side of the world? And that's from a teeny tiny little butterfly. And so, you know, whether I can logically grasp the full concept of how, you know, astrology can really impact us, it's hard for me to fully understand that, but in studying it and looking at it for myself, my family, my friends, my clients, you know, it's just I can't doubt it anymore because the evidence has become so strong and so clear on just how impacted we are with its themes and the way that it impacts us at that cellular level, because we all are little mini walking universes. You know, if we think about, you know, we have our atoms and our electrons and our neutrons and how they're all orbiting around each other, and we're really like 99% space, and that reflects this, you know, relationship of these big planets that are far away and so much space between, and then us in our little microcosms that are also, yeah, these many universes that reflect, you know, the bigger universe at large.
That absolutely makes it so logical. I think even skeptics will somehow now agree with this. You know, even if scientifically, I guess there's enough scientific evidence as well. You know, you mentioned about our how our body is, you know, almost, you know, water and then spinal fluid, and especially with respect to moon, how it has the gravitational pull on high tides and low tides. So there is a scientific evidence also. So it's not all woo woo. And yeah, you were mentioning about the examples. You know, I would love to hear. Our listeners would love to hear some of the case studies or examples.
Yeah, so I kind of brought up three different women with their permission, to use as examples to just highlight some of the extreme differences between our patterns and what we might need to really support us, at a soul and a body level and an emotional level. So I have, you know, the first. So I'm just going to kind of talk a little bit about each case. So each woman came to me, you know, because they have, whether it's chronic migraines or an autoimmune condition that's painful for them, or um, a lot of just tension and tightness or gut irritability in their bellies. So different physical symptoms showing up that's creating pain for them. And, you know, I could use just my scientific brain and say, okay, we need to do nervous system regulation where, you know, we help them with mindfulness and meditation and creating more safety in their body and in their environment. But what does that actually look like for each person? And so in case number one, um, you know, I have a woman who has Cancer in their 12th house and, you know,
Yeah.
going across to the 6th house. And I should try not to use so much jargon, but I have one woman who, you know, what she really needs is rest. And the kind of rest that's meaningful, not just sitting on in front of the TV kind of checking out, but this rest that is really quiet and peaceful, and that might be sitting under a tree out in nature, just herself and hearing the wind blow through the branches. Um, and she's somebody who really needs to learn how to cultivate safety in herself for expressing her emotions. And for her, that was she needed to have music that helped those emotions. So this love of music and being able to have a playlist and have it open up the doors for certain emotions to be expressed, and then she could just sit there in the quiet with this soothing music and allow the tears to flow or allow, whatever feelings were needing to come up and be expressed that day. Compared to another woman who has different things going on in her 6th and 12th house, who has a lot of underlying perfectionism and, hypercritical thinking going on underneath the surface that's not readily apparent. It's kind of this inner self-talk. And for her, she really needed to express this through a significant amount of movement. Um, by getting out, not in the gym and not with a rigid structure, but she needed to get out and, do trail running or mountain biking or kind of these more intense long distance things to get to this place in her body that she kind of let go of some of this. She had to enter she had to enter a different state to do these long distance events, and that allowed things to come up and be moved out of her body and to allow her to let go of the mind and to fall into this trust relationship with her body. Versus the 3rd case, this person, again, had even more different things going on in her chart where there was a lot of pressure that she internalized and put on herself and a lot of pent up anger that was not necessarily related to this life experience. And so she really needed to be given permission as a woman, especially to allow herself to feel angry. You know, there's so many of us women who are conditioned that, anger is not an attractive quality.
Mhm.
So for this woman, this was life changing that it is okay and cultivating the safety of it's okay to feel this anger and it's going to let her body let go of this intense insane amount of tension that she was holding, this rigidness throughout her entire body that was leading to chronic migraines going on, tension headaches, um, and allowing herself to express these emotions that had just been locked down and trapped down in there, um, was really dramatic.
Wow.
And
So,
so
mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
so without knowing some of those things, we could be spinning around trying all kinds of different things, but each woman was having these physical expressions of pain, but each woman had these different needs for, what the body was expressing and what was trapped or what was in the subconscious rather than the conscious.
That is so basically through all these planetary movements and their birth chart, you were able to not exactly maybe determine their life events because of which they could have that pent up anger or frustration, but it's more of addressing that what could be the reason at a noble level for the pain or the body pain that they're having, the chronic pain they're having, like migraines or maybe muscular pain or anything.
Yeah, and I mean a lot of this is mixed with, I learn a lot about their stories and we talk about different things coming up. And so the birth chart is this incredible tool that can help me ask really direct questions, and the woman can identify this strong resonation with what is shared. And so it then becomes this co-creation of us identifying these things together and co-creating these rhythms and rituals to build into their daily routine that allows these things to start to unlock in their body. And then, when we pull in the somatics and the energetic aspects of it, it allows us to go even deeper and work in that nervous system rewiring into the whole picture as well.
Mm, understood. So it's more from the perspective of understanding the root cause rather than, just simply predicting or the fear mongering, specifically for which astrology is kind of infamous among people.
Yeah, I don't use it as a predictor of anything. I use it as a tool of what are the subconscious things going on, because if it's subconscious, we don't have the awareness of it. And so, I use it as a tool to pull into these conversations that helps us as a story is being shared by my client, then we're having the astrology be this tool to help us pick out, and usually when we get it right, there's full body chills, or there's this strong, like, oh my gosh, that is what's been going on. It's this knowing within the woman, that allows the body to unlock, and it drifts up to the consciousness of, ding, 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 you nailed it. This is what is going on beneath the surface or behind the curtain. And now that you're aware of it, now we can do something about it.
Wow, it was really, really symbolic and a really um, different take on how astrology can be used as a channel for understanding your body, your healing journey. That's really great, Dr. Brittany. Thank you for sharing those wonderful examples and with absolute clarity and a wonderful connection between the outer universe and our inner universe or cosmos rather. So
Mhm.
if our listeners they would like to connect with you to explore more about all these modalities, your work, what is the best way to do that?
Yeah, so my website has my different containers on there, and that's brittneyhobbs.com. So BrittneyHobbs.com. And then I'm also on Instagram at Brittney.Hobbs. Same spelling, just a dot in the middle. And as a sincere thank you to you and all of your listeners, I would also like to offer 10% off of whichever container might resonate with them, um, with, a code for, we'll do Cosmic 10, so Cosmic and the number 10, so 10, and if they put that in, then, they can have 10% off of whichever container resonates if they would be interested in exploring how all of this would come together for them and their bodies.
That's wonderful. I'll make sure to have all the details in the show notes, Dr. Brittany. And thank you once again. I mean, this was such a wonderful conversation, and so beautifully you helped us to realize that healing isn't about overpowering the body, but it's more about partnering with it. So, thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sana. It was a pleasure being here with you. I absolutely loved this conversation and the questions and how you steered it. So thank you for bringing it out.
Thank you for your kind words, Dr. Brittany, and to all the listeners. Whether through the whispers of pain, the language of energy, or the guidance of the planets, Dr. Brittany has opened a portal for us today into trust, awareness, and deep alignment. So, once again, to all the listeners, I would love to say that your body has always been speaking. Maybe now is the time to truly listen to it. Until next time on Cosmic Confluence, I urge all of you to stay grounded, stay curious, and also remember that your healing is written in your cells and in the stars. With that, this is your host, Sana, signing off. Thank you.